Episode 11.
Let's go.
We have a very interesting guest today. We have Dr. Emily Mills, a clinical psychologist, a doctor in psychology, who's also a self-professed witch. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, first and foremost, what made you want to become a psychologist?
So I wanted to be an air hostess, and that's all I wanted to do. And when I went down to the Gold Coast, I was doing international business to become a Qantas flight attendant. And my dad was like, why do you want to be a glorified waitress? And I was a waitress at the time, and I was like, oh shit, I've been a waitress. And now I have to do it on the air in a plane. And so I had a org psych there teaching at us, and she was like, I think that you'd make a really good psychologist. Mm-hmm. You build rapport really well. You actually like helping people, so you should become a psychologist. And I was like, okay.
Awesome. Nice. What you said, org psych?
Organisational psychologists.
Okay.
Yeah,
just
so they're a specialty,
yeah.
And they help organisations in regards to like performance, work placement, those kind of things.
Cool. And where did you study?
I studied at Griffith University for my undergraduate, and then for my postgraduate, my clinical doctorate, I did up here at JCU.
Yeah, wow. And how long did that take to do the doctorate?
Well, it took me 10 years in total from start to finish, but I also had a baby in between that time, and I was pregnant with my second child when I was graduating from university.
Yeah, wow.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was the dissertation on?
It was a very boring dissertation on older people's psychological preferences, whether or not they would prefer counselling, like psychology, medication, or a combination of both. Yeah.
It's interesting, from what I understand, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you have to contribute something to the field, right? Yeah. And it's reviewed by a panel of other psychologists, is it?
It's reviewed by other universities, so other professors in other universities mark your stuff and then come back.
And is there risks of getting knocked back or
100%.
And they ask you to go back on things before?
Yeah, so the best thing you can get is where they make minor changes, where they you can do that within the university, show the university that you've done that, and if you get major changes, that's where it all falls apart.
Okay.
And your life ends. You're like, I don't want to do this anymore.
How long does it actually take to, because a friend of mine did his doctorate, I think it was in marine science, marine biology, and, we're talking something like 70,000 pages or something, not 70,000 words.
Mine was 85,000.
Yeah, wow. So how long did it actually take to put all that together? In terms of, I know you did it in terms of fitting in life over 10 years.
Yeah.
But in terms of have you ever calculated hours of work?
That part alone took at least a year and a half. And that was going back and forth. And then you also have to do the data collection as well. So you have to collect the data and then analyse the data and then report on the data. So that took a long process.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, I guess in terms of what did you want to do straight after that? Were you actually practicing while you did the doctorate as well?
Yeah.
And so you got to juggle all that together.
Yeah. So I was out in Mooroomba at that time, so out in a small mining town. I don't know. Do you guys know Mooroomba?
I'm aware of it.
So it's 2 hours west of Mackay, and so my ex-husband is in mining, so we were living out there. So I was working for Queensland Health at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Now I have so many psych questions, heaps, especially in today's day and age, because I think the first thing, I obviously I like talking about taboo things and things that you're not supposed to talk about, and I feel that knowing your background, what have I understood of what you put online as well, is that you're pretty happy to discuss things that I guess wouldn't necessarily be considered mainstream per se.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, the whole trans thing, right? I know it's a sensitive topic, but when it comes to gender dysphoria, is that an actual condition anymore, or has that just been wiped off the board?
I believe it's still in the DSM. So the DSM would be the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. We try not to use that as much, but it's still in the ICD-10, not OCD, ICD-10, which is the International Clinical Recommended thing, ICD-10, diagnostic. Mm-hmm. And I think that's still, it's
still part of it.
Yeah, so it's still part of it. I think that the difficulty there is I think that TikTok and Instagram and not so much Facebook, Snapchat I think it leads to confusion with young people, and I think that in adolescent age, it's a very confusing age anyway. And when you have people influencing you and being like, if you have X, Y, Z, then this means that you are this.
Within a certain category.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
I think it doesn't lead to enough of like, you're a teenager and you're still figuring out life, and sometimes things change, and sometimes you like this and sometimes you don't like that. And I think that that's a very difficult thing.
Yeah, the reason I ask is that, you know, I've got 2 young children, and obviously they're going to grow up in this age where we can, I guess, determine one's own gender, that it's separate. You know, the way I understand it is that sex is a societal construct. Gender is a societal construct. Sex is linked to biology. They're separate things, and so you can determine your gender through self-expression, what have you, self-identity. And I think what's interesting is, you know, you look at a whole spectrum of kids, like teenagers. It's a confusing age, hormonal, all these things. Is it wise to, you know, give these young kids, say, puberty blockers, chemical, what is referred to, I know that people don't think this, some people don't think this, and some people do, they call it chemical castration. And the fact that, you know, what are the long-term effects of these things?
I think that's a very difficult one, because you can make those choices now without parental consent. So from the age of 16, you're in Australia, in Queensland, you're allowed to make those decisions without parental consent.
Yeah.
I think we don't know enough to be able to make those conclusive decisions about what the long-term effects would be. But it would definitely affect reproduction and the ability for you to reverse that.
So that's a thing, fertility. Wow. Yeah.
So it would definitely affect your fertility either way that you go, because you're changing the structure of the body, and you're increasing one thing and decreasing another, which would impact on those. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's so frightening just to hear you say that, because you don't hear many professionals actually want to talk about it. So I appreciate you giving an opinion on it. Not trying to get anyone into trouble or anything. You know, I guess would have, I have a Christian worldview, which you're probably aware of, and I don't see them as two separate things, because when I look at the ideology, I had a friend explain it to me, take me through it, and someone that's in the industry in terms of helping these people, dealing with these people. And I think generally this whole trans thing is coming from a place where people do want to try and help and accommodate, right? Which I don't think is a bad thing. But I was looking at it and I thought to myself, this idea of separating gender from sex, that's two separate things. One's biology, one's ideology, right? How can that argument not be done for the same thing as race or age? Like, for example, if I feel that I'm young at heart, like deep down I know I'm a young person, I feel like I'm 14. Or, say a 13-year-old feels like they're a lot older at heart, they're an old soul, so to speak. Why can't then age be separated? If gender can be, why can't age? And then I thought to myself, if that was possible, if that's compatible within the ideology, how dangerous that would be for children.
It would be very dangerous for children. But I also see the other side. Like, I have a transgender patient at the moment, and she's the most bravest patient that I have, because, you know, her life was filled with trauma prior to making that decision and to actually stepping over into that. So I see that it can cause a lot of psychological distress, a lot. But then I think it also becomes an identity that you have, and there's very much fear that, like, I've worked so hard to become this identity, and then if that changed, then who am I? And that becomes a very difficult thing in teenagers. Making that decision, I think, would be a really hard thing to say from, like, the go set, that would be a challenge. But I think that, like, definitely supporting your child to be the expression of themselves, however that is. And if that is, like, changing their name and changing their, like, school clothes and things like that, I think they're things that you can do to help your child explore a change in gender. And then I think that after that, it's really up to the children and the parents to make those decisions. Yeah. So if they... do you think that kids should be allowed, knowing that the
the hormonal changes they're going through, the biological changes they're going through as teenagers, whether they're even should be able to make a decision, like a life-changing decision like that, especially if they want to get on puberty blockers. Is that something that's wise?
It's very hard to say what the right decision is. And I can see where policymakers are trying to come from in regards to they're very cautious about the long-term impacts psychologically on a child that's forced to be something that they feel that they're not. So I think they're trying to protect them in that way, but there is very long-term consequences that can occur in regards to that. So it is like, a happy medium.
It's for me, I always try to look at the consistency of arguments, you know, and I heard, and I'm not sure if it's real or not, like I'm not sure if anyone's sort of taken the piss, but, you know, transracialism, like people trying to be different races.
I don't know.
Because it's in this. If you can bring up articles about it, you know, like white guys trying to be black guys. They're saying they identify as a black person. They should be able to say the N word. And you know, it's because if gender can be societal construct, then surely race can be too.
You're walking a very thin line. I think is like you could make that argument for many things, couldn't you?
Yeah, well, that's the reason I look at it, and I said that's the reason I look at it. Look, it's such a slippery slope. And I feel like it ends up at the age thing, which when I look at structure of a society, you know, there's certain aspects, things change, and we need obviously better understanding of how we're supposed to adapt in an ever-changing world, better technology, better knowledge, education. But we need basic order and structure, you know, and, you know, I've got 2 young daughters, and the idea of, you know, them sharing a bathroom with a trans woman who's a biological male, that's scary for me. Like, that's scary for me, and the idea that the potential risk that puts them at.
I have to, and so I'm speaking from my personal experience with my patient that I have at the moment. I would never be concerned. I have a 8-year-old daughter, and I would never be concerned with her being in the same change room as her at all, because I know her and I value that. But you can say that about anyone. Like, you know, sometimes bad things happen at the Strand, in the male toilet with males as well. And sometimes females can be perpetrators as well. So I feel like that's a really difficult thing to put everyone in that basket.
Sure. Yeah. And I don't mean to generalise either.
No,
even if you look at the idea of trying to, you know, narrow the equality of opportunity, right, between men and women, and whether that be in Parliament or whether that be in certain workplaces, the idea of biological males transitioning and then taking away those opportunities from biological females, women, who I would call women, I would think that'd be unfair. And then you looked at that Leah Thomas, the one that went into swimming and took away scholarships from women, you know, and I think to myself, wow, like it's cannibalistic almost. The idea of trying to support.
But I think swimming, hasn't the international swimming thing come
they
out?
Did.
And they changed
because of the uproar.
Yeah.
But then I think to myself about, you know, where's the line? It seems sports seem to be a bit of a line at the moment. So not to make this an entire podcast about the trans thing, but you know, just to have a clinical psychologist on, it'd just be nice to hear different views. Nonetheless, what is your specialisation? I saw that it was You speak a lot about PTSD?
Yeah.
What is that?
So complex PTSD.
Yeah.
So it means that you have multiple traumas in your younger years that lead to an outcome of PTSD as an adult. So you can have difficulty relating to people, difficulty with emotional regulation, and difficulty with being in relationship with other people, because it is a relational condition. You normally get it from your parents, and they normally pass that down to you from generationally. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a difficult field to be in. Is it hard for you to hear and help other people in that regard?
I'm a psychologist now for 16 years. And I think you develop a way to cope and create space in between those things. And I think that I have good boundaries now, that I don't take that stuff home. That's not to say that sometimes I don't hear something that I'm like, oh, that was hard and that was a hard day. But
Yeah. And what are some of the mechanisms that people can sort of cope with PTSD and try and live and try and manage it?
I think definitely I found IFS, so internal family systems, as a psychological therapy that has been life-changing for me. So the idea with IFS is there is multiple parts of your personality. So no one's made up of one part of their personality. So right now I'm psychologist Emily talking to you. When I go home, I'll probably be mum Emily, which is a different kind of person. And so we're made up of lots of different parts inside of us. And those parts, they say we have wounded younger parts. So they're exiled and put in the box down there. We never want to feel those feelings again. So if it was unloved, then we don't ever want to feel unloved again. And then we form different parts to protect ourselves. So we form manager parts and we form firefighter parts. So manager parts are the people that manage us on a day-to-day basis to never feel that pain again. So they would be like the super organized part that never wants to feel unloved because I've let people down, or the perfectionist part that needs to like make sure that I'm really perfect all the time to not let people down. And then you have firefighters. So when these parts are triggered, the firefighters come out really quickly to put out that. So that would be the dissociation, so memory blocks. You would have any kind of alcohol use, panic attacks, anything that gets you out of your body as quickly as possible. But the thing that I love about IFS the most is that everyone has a self. So the self is what is your birthright. And so as a Christian, it would be the Holy Spirit, I guess, would be your closest example. Like everyone has a Holy Spirit inside of them and that lives inside of them. And that cannot be taken away from you. So it cannot be taken away by trauma. It can be covered like the sun is covered by clouds. And when you get back to this inner knowing, this inner understanding of yourself, then you are able to heal. And so my thing is about getting everyone back to that like inner knowing and the calm and connected and curious part about them, rather than being blended with protective parts, which is really important. And then the thing that connects IFS is you have self inside of you and then big self, and big self can be God. Like big self can be your version of what God is. It can be a higher power, it can be spirit, it can be anything. And so you can connect into the power of like your spiritual staff inside of you to create healing. Yeah.
Okay. This is where we blend.
This
is where we blend do you find, before we do get into that spiritual side of things, do you find anyone that shares similar views in your field in terms of mixing science with spirituality, in terms of trying to get a better result for your patients or healing or anything like that?
I think any IFS practitioner would have that idea of self and then big self.
So IFS is about this particular style. And is there many psychologists or people involved in this?
So there's only 3 in Townsville that are actually registered. So that's a really important thing. So you can read a book and be like, I'm an IFS therapist, but like there is like a certification process that you have to go through, and obviously some courses that you have to do. So I did my course in the US and I had to like stay up like a shift worker overnight because it's very hard to get IFS training. It kind of just exploded. I think the world was ready.
When was it started? When did it start?
So it started back, I think 2001 or 2002 when Richard Swartz first started it. But I don't think that everyone kind of caught on to it until the last couple of years. And maybe that's where people were seeking something bigger than themselves. And it was a way of connecting spirituality, I think, with the science as well as, that understanding. So
Okay. And have you found people have found success in this at all?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
On the spiritual side of things. Can I ask you, do you think there is a good side or a bad side when it comes to the spiritual side of things?
I think there's a good side and bad side to everything. I think that definitely spirituality has become a buzzword at the moment. And I think there's definitely people that maybe prey on those sorts of things. You can make a lot of money out of spirituality at the moment, can't you? Especially online, and especially talking about those sorts of things. So I think that there's definitely good and bad about certain things.
How would you discern the difference between the good side of things and the bad side of things when it comes to, say, dealing with, when you called self or big self?
Yeah.
Are we actually talking about something that you're imagining when you say big self? Big self can be your image of God or anything like that. Are we talking about an actual spiritual entity?
So that's a hard one, because IFS does actually bring in the topic of maybe being blended. So have a part take over you that isn't actually your part, that comes from spiritual possession or it comes from other things. So they do say that there are dark sides. Mm-hmm. We also say that there are legacy burdens. So these are burdens that are carried down from you that aren't actually yours but come from lifetimes of experiencing the same thing. So there's definitely dark sides in regards to entities, but I don't think that big self is in regards to that. I think that every religion around the world has a higher power. It's just what you define that as. And I think that's what IFS tries to do, is not say you cannot participate because your God is not my God. It's whatever you believe is your higher power. Yeah.
And so have you ever had any personal experience with like bad spirits or anything like that? Because, for instance, the reason I ask is because I've very, very accepting of the spiritual side of things. And I've personally seen amazing, beautiful side, and then I've also seen dark sides. I know how real it is, and plenty of testimony and people sharing their stories, even on this podcast, that have spoken about that. So the question I would have is like, how would you discern what you're letting in is actually good or is it bad? So that's. I don't think in terms of morality, when it comes to what is right, what is wrong. I'm not sure if that is a subjective thing. I think
it's a feeling, isn't it? So I think it's a feeling of like what you feel inside when you're around someone. You can tell when you don't like someone, or you feel like their vibe is not a very good vibe, or what they're saying isn't what you would believe. That's where spirituality is really hard, because people seeking spirituality are normally in very vulnerable positions. And so their like thermometer of like what is right and wrong is probably not the best. That's how cults get started, isn't it? People are seeking something outside of themselves, and they find understanding, belonging in a group of people, and that becomes a very difficult thing. I think checking in with yourself and like checking in with you and how this thing makes you feel, whether or not it makes you feel good or bad, whether or not you feel better afterwards or worse afterwards, I think is reflective. And I think being reflective is your way and your sense of understanding what is right and wrong. You may not understand it right away, but I think that sometimes that always comes out in the end, definitely.
Would that be potentially dangerous though? Because if we are having a subjective understanding of what is right or wrong for us, depending on what actually feels good, then if the morality aspect is like, some people feel good doing bad things.
100%. Some people do feel good doing bad things.
So the subjective reflective process could potentially not be beneficial to oneself if they're doing things that we think are bad. See, the way I perceive morality, right, is I have this understanding that we're made in the image of God, which we recognize the transcendental aspects of reality, which is we appeal to these things, these objective understanding of truth and morality, what's right and what's wrong. I believe we all recognize it. We want to think it's subjective, but it's actually not, because when we appeal to this universal standard. So, for instance, there was this, I forget who wrote it, but they said, kicking a grandma in the knees is universally wrong, okay, in every culture and every time and every place, okay, because it was just something someone wrote. But generally speaking, there's certain things that we think is universally wrong. Now, if we think it's universally wrong, we would say that it's objectively wrong, therefore it's not from us.
But that's where you would get influences from everyone around you. So generationally, I'm sure that there was someone in your lineage that kicked grandma in the knees and got in trouble for it and learned that that was right or wrong. Do you not believe that that would be passed down generation?
So in terms of like a societal evolutionary understanding, well, I guess I wouldn't classify as universal, because the idea of a universal standard is that in all times it's wrong. Like, a lot of people appeal to like a societal standard.
You're trying to say like when the commandments were handed out, this is where it was determined what was right and wrong?
So my understanding is that I naturally want to appeal to an objective standard. There's certain things I think, like killing kids, it's wrong. It doesn't matter when it was done. And this is the issue when people say society determines morality. Well, society's done messed up things, including the Nazis. So that would be like a really bad thing, Not many people know this, but say Stalin and Hitler were humanists. Yeah. They had a collectivist-based thinking that they thought that what they were doing was right, but we know it's wrong. So my understanding is that if it's an objective standard, it would be wise to inquire what that is. That's another discussion. But if I'm delving in the spiritual world, and depending on how something makes me feel, whether it makes me feel good or bad, yeah, it's probably a fair indicator, right? But then it gets the ideas, what is right and what is wrong? What is good for me? What is bad for me?
But you would have like moments where you would be like, I know. So like it's not just like what feels right or wrong. It's like all the sensations. Like how does it feel in your body? Because you can be thinking that something's right, but in your body it feels wrong. So that's where the connection between the head and the body like need to be in. Or you could be feeling pleasure in your body and the whole time you're thinking this is so wrong and I shouldn't be doing it. So that's where you get subjective in regards to that, is the connection between both, and why is that, in inquiring inside of you. But when you listen to yourself, so IFS believe that when you listen to yourself, self has all the answers because it's inside of you and it is your moral compass. It is your inside and it doesn't intend you harm. So even the baddest parts of you. So we would say that if you were doing something that is bad and not good for you, then that's a part of you that's trying to protect you maybe from the idea that you're a good person. So I do bad things to hurt myself. So yeah, they would see it as a part and not as a self-led decision, because self knows what to do. Yeah.
But if self's telling you to do something bad?
Self would never tell you to do something bad.
Okay, so you haven't had an instance where someone has done this method.
So I would see it as a part. So I would see it as a part that has requested them to do something bad. So you would see it as a part that's designed to hurt other people. So in a domestic violence situation, that person isn't always violent all of the time, 100%. There are moments where they're different kind of people. And so you would see that maybe the part of them that's blended is in the really aggressive and hurtful part. That part is a part that's trying to protect them maybe from being the weak little boy that was hurt by his dad and needs to be the bigger, stronger person in regards to that. And that's not to say that spirituality doesn't have people in it that are going to want to be the like guru, want to be the person that is adored by people because they have their own stuff going on. But that's a part, not their core essence of who they are. And so when you are acting from a part, you will pick up on that. If you are connected with yourself and out of blended parts, if I'm still in a part that needs to be healed by someone and is seeking the answers outside of myself, then of course I'm going to believe something that isn't morally or spiritually maybe in my best interest, but that's me acting from a part and not place of self. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. You mentioned the idea of possession. Is that something that
IFS talk about?
Yeah. And is it something that it's?
I've not seen it. So
Is it something that is encouraged?
No.
Okay.
So it's not encouraged. It's they believe that entities can become attached to you, so they're called unattached burden. So they're from nowhere that you know where they are, and those entities are kind of acting in this space. So the idea is that still needs to be healed, kind of like someone else. So I guess in the old. So
what these entities need healing as well.
Yeah.
So if they're bothering, say someone does this practice and then someone gets bothered by these entities, how are they supposed to would you want to get rid of them? Would you want to get away from them? Or like, how's it treated?
The understanding is still like it would be with IFS, is to create space between you and the entity to find out what the entity's role is and to provide that with an unburdening so that can leave away from you. Yeah.
So how do you do that?
So to create space,
I
guess asking for that part to give you space. So asking the unattached burden to kind of give you some space. If it doesn't, there's like a series of direct questions that you can ask that part to get to know it and explore it more. And then, going from there.
Okay. And that would obviously, when you're asking, we're talking about some level of communication.
Yeah.
Have you ever read anything about Allan Kardec?
No.
Yeah. It's interesting because I know someone that that practices what you would consider witchcraft, right? They're mediums. They incorporate spirits, and they really do think they're doing good things. Generally, they think they're doing good things, and they strive to help other people and communicate with these things. One thing that's interesting about the person that I do know that does this is that everything in their life. They're so willing to help others, but everything in their life is chaos. It's like I look at that person, I think to myself, why do Why do you keep pursuing
I
that?
would look at that, but is there also like some trauma there? That chaos feeds their nervous system. When you're born in trauma, your nervous system seeks chaos.
Well, this is what I'm thinking about when you talk about these
Unattached burdens.
Unattached burdens. It sounds to me what I would call demons or spirits, evil spirits, familiar spirits, right? It sounds awfully familiar because you don't want them around you, right? And they have a tendency to hang around, what I would consider opening up certain sort of spiritual doorways. And so with this person that I do know, yes, you're probably right, is that they have a lot of pain, they have a lot of hurt, and this is an avenue where helping others maybe can distract them from the pain that they feel from within.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, they still have the chaos that they're dealing with, and what they might be helping others to the extent where they're hurting themselves.
But this is where their sun is covered up, isn't it? Because if you were connected to yourself, you would be able to see that my life is chaos and I'm living in chaos, and maybe that chaos is connected to my nervous system and my body not being able to cope, feeling safe without chaos.
Is it possible that these unattached? I keep forgetting the unattached burdens. Is it that these are the ones causing the chaos?
Don't know. You'd have to explore that a lot more.
Have you?
I told you I haven't seen someone with an unattached burden.
No? Okay.
Not that I would see is an unattached burden.
Yeah,
from
okay.
my understanding.
Yeah, because I've personally seen a bit of possession before, and it's not a nice thing. Like, it's scary.
I know. So I grew up really Catholic, and my grandfather used to send me these books because I used to have tarot cards back then, and my mum was like, all right, like, I've given up. You can just have your tarot cards. Like, I don't care anymore. And he sent me, like, have you read the real story of the Exodus?
There's a couple. There's one in Germany, Emily Rose. There's
South America with the boy.
I haven't read that one. There's a couple of them. It's horrid.
It was like I got nightmares for weeks about that.
Yeah. And when
I haven't ever done a Ouija board. Like, I'm like, that's where my line draws.
the couple guests we had on before, they did Ouija boards, and so he had an encounter with a little child spirit, and it followed him home, and it scared him really, really, really bad, and it was bothering him at his house. And so why wouldn't you do a Ouija board then?
So for me, witchcraft isn't Ouija boards and tarot cards. So for me, like, witchcraft is connecting in with nature, connecting in with your cycles, creating rituals and spells to bring you that connection and to help move your life in a positive way. I don't think that calling in spirits is really my version of what witchcraft is for me. Okay. So I wouldn't do that.
So
and it was probably like that book probably like cured me of that desire to ever do that. Like, that's like magic that I can't do. But I do like angel magic, so I definitely call in angels and do sigils in regards to those connections to angels to call them in to create change. Yeah. Just
before we digress into angels, the Ouija board thing, you said you wouldn't do it. Is it because of the experience or the understanding of what's happened with possession?
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah. So don't want to go near that. You think that's a bad thing?
Well, I feel internally, I'm a pretty open person. I reckon I'd totally get like an unattached burden coming through. Let's like limit it. Let's limit the like effect of that. So what do you think I do every day as well? Like, I think that being in that energy space of other people, like, do you not feel energy? Like, do you feel energy of people? Like, when they're having a really down day, you can feel like that energy. Like, I work with people that are in low vibrational frequency a lot of the time. And I think that when you sit in that vibrational frequency every day, like, you open yourself up to different things. I believe that it changes your frequency. And when you are at a low vibrational frequency, I think you're more vulnerable. And when you're more vulnerable, I don't want to be doing a Ouija board and bringing ghosts home.
It's interesting. You mentioned before earlier about the Holy Spirit. I wouldn't necessarily share the same understanding. In terms of what Holy Spirit is. To me, Holy Spirit is God, right? And the idea of Him dwelling in is through our faith in Christ. That feeling, when we talk about energetic presence and feel is a sense of peace and love that never known before I actually knew Christ. I grew up Greek Orthodox, similar to Catholic. It's pretty much the same thing, but there was no understanding of Holy Spirit. There was no really understanding of who Jesus is. It was really, you built a connection with the church, not with God.
Yeah.
Right. And so I find there's been a lot of friends of mine, Catholic and Greek Orthodox, that they will go to church and they'll be like, this sounds all right, but I see nothing but hypocrisy.
Yeah,
and
why continue to do that?
Well, this is the point. They don't.
Oh.
And then they'll go into spirituality because I think there's an understanding that people feel like there's something more to life, and they go,
100%.
Yeah, and they go looking for certain things in terms of the spiritual side of things.
But why does your spirituality have to be better than someone else? Finding like a spiritual connection to something greater than themselves, isn't that?
I guess it would be related to my epistemology and my understanding of knowledge and truth. I believe truth itself is universal.
Yeah.
I believe it's a part of those transcendental concepts, which is the Greek philosophers picked up on it. I think Socrates says that beauty is a gift from God, which was because they had 12 gods, and then they had the 13th unknown God, which was they realized that something can't come from nothing. There must have been a singularity, an uncaused first cause, the eternal God. They picked up on that, and they did that through logic and reason, and what they understand is beauty. You can't actually describe beauty without using the word beauty. It's not necessary. There's no reason why our visual cortexes should look at the Milky Way and go, oh, wow, or look at a sunset, and we all recognize that beauty. It's the idea of being transcendental. I think truth is a part of that as well. I believe that logic, even our ability now to converse one another, is a part of that as well, the transcendental. And so if it's a part of transcendental, it's universal. Truth is like, I don't believe the laws of logic allow us to disagree about the same point and we both be right. I don't believe the laws of logic only allow us two opposing views can't be right at the same time. So if I tell you if there's a cup there, I say there's a cup there, and Dale says it's not. Only one of us can be right. We can't both be right.
That is very true. But my version of a cup and what I see in that cup may be different to what Dale views.
I know what you mean, but we're all seeing the same cup.
I know, but this is like God. I don't think anyone experiences God in the same way. I think God comes through in different ways. And I think that, like, for me, like, I've recently come back from Peru, and Pachamama is like Mother Earth over there, and she's alive in the Apus, which is in the mountain spirits.
Real quick, I'm going to ask you a question, and we can cut it out if we're not allowed to answer it. Did you do the ayahuasca over there?
No, I didn't do ayahuasca over there, but I have done ayahuasca.
Okay, we can talk about that later. In case you're not allowed to say something, because it'd be interesting to see what you said about people experiencing God different ways. I think you're 100% right. But what my perception of who God is, through my understanding of truth and knowledge, is that I believe that there is only one God.
And for me, for many years, I was like, it was the universe, and I'd be like the universe and spirit and stuff. But I think I'm coming back to the idea that there is a God. Do I believe that it is the Catholic version of God, that my God is punishing and awful and unkind? I don't believe that. I believe that God is like, to me, I heard this statement from another person, another Instagram account, that it's like the motherless mother. Like, there's nothing that you could ever do that would make me not love you. And I think that growing up in the Catholic faith is very punishing and punitive. And if you don't do this, God won't love you. If you don't confess your sins and do your penance, then God won't love you. And I just don't believe that God is that vision.
It's amazing. It's amazing you're bringing this up, because I was just talking to my Greek Orthodox friend who's been watching my reels and started asking a lot of questions about God, because he said the same thing, about you got to do confession, you got to tithe, you got to go to church, you got to do this. And if you don't do it, God doesn't love you, you're not saved, right? Which, when you actually read who Christ is and what he taught and what the apostles taught, it's actually the antithesis of that. It's the idea of that. It's funny, it's just so weird that you bring this up, and it's a good thing. I like it, but it's just that, Jesus came for the broken people. So the Pharisees, the real religious people, would go up and be like, why are you eating with the drunkards, the publicans, the prostitutes, all these? What are you doing? You're eating with them. You're sharing a meal with them. You're not supposed to do that. That's against the Mosaic law. And he's like, I'm here for the sick. I'm not here for the healthy.
But so this is a really hard thing for me. I have the most amazing client that I saw today, and he is he's a very deep thinker. And he was like, Emily, I just want to let you know that I've decided that the Christian faith actually did wonders for the world. And I was like, okay. And he was like, I've been reading this book and I really think it did because, before only the rich could afford to see like whoever the gods were or go to the temples, you were not allowed into the temples unless you were rich. We were sacrificing human beings. There were too many gods that the poor people couldn't understand. And that's where Christianity came in and gave to the people the accessibility to God to everyone. And I think that that's definitely true. Do I think that maybe we did the one God, only male-dominated God? Do I think that that affected like women healers? 100%. Women held knowledge for many, many years and that was taken away, and their right to practice that was taken away. And I think that you've lost so much knowledge and wealth and everything in the name of one God. And I think that sometimes it's that balance about, yes, there are good things that have happened from that, but also I think that the one God and punishing.
Well, see, this is the thing, is that how about this?
Yeah.
Have you heard of the trilemma? Have you heard of C.S. Lewis?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you heard of his trilemma?
No.
So he's a Catholic philosopher, right? Okay, which a lot of people, he was mates with J.R. Tolkien. He was a Catholic philosopher as well. Now, look, I'm not a huge fan of Catholic doctrine, right? But he had this trilemma, which was this. He said Jesus is either Lord, liar, or lunatic, right? And the reason being is that everyone, regardless of who you think Jesus is, everyone thinks Jesus' teachings are inherently good. Love thy enemy, treat others the way you want to be treated, pray for those that persecute you, turn the other cheek, humility, grace, love. These are concepts which people, they might argue about. He's a prophet in Islam, he's God in Christianity, he's Christ consciousness in New Age, he's a Buddha, reincarnation Buddha. So there's all these different understandings of who he is, but the teachings are good. Here's the dilemma that he brought up. You take any character or any person that you know, even alive or in history that you respect, that you think is good, if they claim to be God, what would you say? Like if you take someone that is...
No, you're not God.
You're a liar or you're a lunatic.
Yeah.
So this is the problem, is no one wants to call Jesus a liar or a lunatic. Because how can you respect someone's teachings and yet they claim to be God? That's the dilemma, or the trilemma.
It's a dilemma.
It is, because everyone lives by his teaching. So he either is who he says he is, Lord, or he's a liar and a lunatic. And it's a really, really interesting philosophical question that he posed. And that's the thing, is that Catholic doctrine and Orthodox doctrine doesn't teach relationship with church. And when you actually read, I said to my mate actually who does jiu-jitsu, I've invited him to church a few times, he won't come. That's cool. I'll keep inviting him, and then one day
Which church do you go to?
Beaches Church at Jensen.
Yeah.
And he does jiu-jitsu, and because he hates the hypocrisy of the church and all these things, and I understand that. But I said to him, would you judge jiu-jitsu based on my ability to do it? He's like a purple belt. He's really good, right? I was like, would you judge jiu-jitsu on my ability to do it? And he looks at me like, what do you mean? I go, would you judge the sport of jiu-jitsu on my ability to do it? He goes, but you can't do jiu-jitsu. I said, exactly. I said, don't judge Christianity based on the church. Judge it on Jesus. And he looked at me, and he swore at me. He basically said, he told me to go away in colourful language. He's amazing. I love him, right? But I think that's one of the dilemmas, is that what is your perceptions of Jesus? What are your perceptions of him?
Well, I think my perceptions of Jesus come from like my learning as a Catholic. I don't think that I've really...
And what did they teach about him?
Oh, that Jesus he helped the broken, and he was there, the Son of God, to absolve us of our sins, and did that. Did
you ever understand Jesus as God himself?
No.
See, that's the interesting part.
Never. He was always the Son of God. He's always the Son of God.
So that's the thing, right? Is that and this is the interesting son. He was called many titles: Son of God, Son of Man, Son of David. These were all titles, right? That had Jewish contextual meaning that don't mean a lot to us today. A lot of these titles were of, Ezekiel's called the Son of Man, right? So there's all these titles that do get shared, but he is like, as the Christians understanding, according to the Christian creed and Catholic creed, but they don't teach this, is that he is God in the flesh.
That would never have.
Yeah, and it's in the Bible, it's in their creed, but they don't teach a lot of that, which is that he is, in the beginning was the Word was with God, was God. He's the one that dwelt among us, he became flesh. And that's the idea that Jesus is the God-man. So that's the thing, is it I'm just wondering why so many people, this is not the first conversation I've had about this, and it's just amazing how many people say that, no, Jesus isn't God, he's the Son of God, right? And I don't mean any slight against you. A lot of people talk about this. A lot of people understand it this way, but it's not actually what the apostles wrote.
But I think this is what you learn, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so what you learn becomes what you know, unless you want to investigate that in a different way. And for me, Jesus was not my person.
Yeah.
Like for me, I liked understanding Mother Earth and doing spells and rituals and those sorts of things. So that became my understanding and knowledge and like what I wanted to focus my attention on, and not Jesus probably in the Catholic faith. So that sticks with that. But Doreen Virtue.
Door in Virtue.
Do you guys know Doreen Virtue? It's really interesting. You should go and do some Doreen Virtue looking. So she did all the angel cards and she did archangel cards, fairy cards, angel cards, every kind of amazing oracle cards that you could have. And you cannot buy them anymore because she renounced her New Age faith and believed in Jesus again and became super I hate New Age. I hate everything about New Age. It's the devil's work. It's sent here to confuse people in regards to who they are. And then she became full Jesus. But then old girl wasn't making any money. So then, of course, she brought out Jesus cards.
Okay, so she did her own thing.
Wow. But she brought it back in. But it was really interesting because she just did a change like that. It wasn't anything that happened. She just changed really quickly.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Be interesting. We can isolate that noise. Don't worry. Yeah.
So talking about all this, what do you believe happens when we die?
That's a good question.
I believe in the afterlife.
Stay silent for 25 minutes and then 30 minutes. I don't know. That's a good question. That's a very good question.
I definitely believe that you come back. That we have karmic lessons that we come back to learn until we've learnt those lessons. And I think that we have a karmic agreement prior to. And we keep on coming back until we've learnt this thing and we're evolved and get to go to evolved place.
Like a new earth or something?
I don't think a new earth. I think you become a spirit up there with God. Yeah, hanging out.
For eternity?
So
after you've learnt your lessons.
Do you believe
you've got to come back a lot of times.
There's different there's different understandings of reincarnation. Some people believe that if you do something wrong, you get punished and you go back. Other people believe that you're constantly evolving. Which one do you share? So can I ask you this? Yeah. Because I struggle with reincarnation big time. Because I have this understanding that I see wrong, and I think, again, morality being the transcendental universal concept that we recognize as image bearers of God, you, me, Dale, pretty sure Dale too. The thing is that we're all seeking justice. If we get wronged, if someone steals our stuff and someone breaks in our house, we want the police to deal with it. We want the courts to deal with it. We are seeking that, right? And I'm not talking about retribution. Justice is a different thing. What's fair? Equity, fairness, equality, these things, justice. And so if someone does something really, really wrong, we got some bad people in here. You've probably dealt with certain people that have... Anyway, regardless, we know that there's evil, right? What happens to them? There's no punishment. There's no. Where's the justice for the things that they've done? Did Hitler get another life?
Well, I feel I'm sure Hitler has had another life.
Yeah.
And I think that he would have come back maybe in a role where he was like on the other side. So it kind of is justice, I guess, but it is the evolution that hopefully by the end of your life, you've evolved to the next level and you've leveled up. Like, I think that my life, definitely this lifetime, is definitely fucking evolution. It's like,
Okay. How about this? What do you think about this then?
and I don't think I was a bad person in my past life.
Well, I don't know. We don't know. But let me ask you this. And this is a little bit of a trap question, okay? It's a bit of a trap. I forget who came up with it, forget his name, but the idea is that in my understanding of the afterlife is that it's only through our faith in Christ, right? One life. And I think there's a duality. I think there's a duality to life in general, good, evil, night, day. And the idea is that if I am right, people that don't believe in Christ would be, I guess, what you consider trouble, right? But if you're right, then I just get another chance if I'm wrong, right? So if you believe what I believe, you win either way.
This is a hard one because I think this falls into like the shame stuff that comes with like different religions and what you learn. So both my children are baptized, not because I fucking believe in God, not because I believe in the Catholic faith, but my mum is super Catholic and she was like, if they're not baptized, they ain't going to the same heaven as you because you're baptized. So both of them are baptized, not because I believe in that faith, just because I didn't want to take the risk.
Ah, okay.
So with like
actually, just real quick, the Bible doesn't teach that, by the way.
In regards to that,
Yeah.
well, both my children are now baptized. Wish we had.
I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. No, just that
I just didn't want to test the theory.
Every religion has this works-based salvation, which you have a natural rejection of, aversion, right? And that's fine. And I agree with you. I have the same understanding because with a works-based salvation, there's manipulation, there's control, right? But the Bible teaches, like, you look at the thief on the cross, and I actually had when I was on my own personal faith journey, before I really found Jesus, was trying to find out what was going on. I got the Greek priest from Townsville to my house. I got some questions. Anyway, and I asked about this idea about having to go to church, having to do this and all these things, and you work your way to salvation. And if you do enough, then you're sweet. The Mormons share that, the Muslims share that, the Buddhists share that. There's a lot of people that share this workplace. But when I read the Bible, I look at the thief on the cross, who was a thief, a criminal. He did terrible things. He just believed in Jesus, and Jesus said to him, "You will be with me in paradise." So I asked the priest, where was his baptism? Where was his tithing? Where was his confession? Where was his works? And he sit there, and after about a minute, Matthew, his belief was a work. That's it. And I go, and honestly, that was the moment where I actually started looking at different churches until I found the one I was at, because I realized what is written is very different to what was taught in those doctrines. So, because well, lucky for
rain.
Yeah.
Oh, I was like, what the hell is this noise?
It's well, I've got this voice isolation thing, which you can get rid of all that. But
so with reincarnation, where does that like start from? Like, was it just always there, or like what do you think?
I don't know. Like, where did Earth come from, and where did things? Well, I definitely believe in a biological version that we're all like in a petri dish of like puddles, and then became human beings through that. I don't know. I think that like maybe we were just like spirit consciousness. I haven't really.
Or the evolution. I believe in microevolution, that change within a species and all that stuff. But the primordial soup is philosophical metaphysics at its best. It's not scientific. No one can scientifically prove the origin of life. They're actually going backwards. The deeper they go, they get
confused.
Yeah, they reach this concept. Darwin said, if you ever find an example of irreducible complexity, then my whole theory goes out the door. And it's starting to look like they see in the human cell, there's actual like biomechanical machines that tell molecules where to go, and it's like there is no way that they've been able to discover. You take that one piece out, it breaks the whole cell. There's no way to make the evolutionary jump. So it's the deeper they're going, the more crazy it's looking in terms of,
where we came from.
Yeah, I think, look, the Big Bang, space-time matter was birthed in an instant. In the beginning, in Genesis 1, it shares a similar story. Space-time matter was birthed in an instant. So I think that is the logical. I actually think, I get made fun of being a theist, believing that God created the world. But, if I told you this came out of thin air, and you go, like, there's design, there's all these things, you go, you're an idiot, man. I go, but the idea that, all this complexity in the universe just came from nothing, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, I read Lawrence Krauss, and I read his book, and what he says is nothing that has characteristics. Well, the moment you give a characteristic to nothing, then it's something, isn't it? It's starting to sound like God. So, like, I looked at it, and it is a difficult question. It takes faith.
It does take faith, and I think faith comes in lots of different ways.
Yeah. It is, so sorry to interrupt. I didn't mean to interrupt. I couldn't help it. About the reincarnation thing. Are you ever worried that you might be wrong?
No. I think that faith internally, I think that I have such a strong understanding now of my belief system that's my belief system now. Will that change? Probably, maybe. I don't know. As I evolve and grow as a person, that may change again. I know that my evolution to where I am now as a psychologist has changed so much in 15 years. I was very scientific basis, and then I had a healing session in Murumba with the spiritual healer, and then I started hearing voices of what my patients wanted me to ask them, which was a very interesting concept for me. So they would have something like cancer would keep on coming up in my head, and I'd be like, have you ever had cancer? And then that would lead to change. So that happened for a little while after this spiritual healing. And then I went to a meditation with what I believe was dark energy in that space where I didn't feel good. I went in the meditation and I couldn't get up. I felt like I needed to get out of there, and I
paralysis
felt
thing.
Couldn't move. And my best friend was next to me, but I couldn't reach her. And she was right there, but I couldn't get anything there. And then that was it. I was like, I don't want any part of this because this is not okay. And then it all shut down and all the words went away. But I think it opened me up to the possibility that there is something different, and maybe having faith and believing again leads to change. And I think that definitely it does. I think that having faith in something, I think helps in many different ways. I think that it allows for you to have faith that things will get better, and that there is a higher power, and that if you
we die without hope,
sometimes surrender, you sometimes surrender to that. Sometimes that's all people have is that surrendering. I can't fix this, I just have to surrender that this is going to get better.
Have you heard of David Hume?
Yeah.
He was the Enlightenment skeptic. He's the father of sort of skepticism, but he in his pardon.
Was he did you do a little thing on him?
No, not David Hume. But I bring him up sometimes. Maybe you've heard me bring him up about the idea. He came up with the problem of induction, which was so a lot of people that have a science-based thinking, evidentialist-based thinking, they say, well, faith is ridiculous, right? But what he proved with the problem of induction is that no matter how many times things have occurred in the past, it's not evidence that it will occur in the future.
Yeah.
Right? You only got probability, which is based on belief. It's based on faith. So you don't know the sun will come up tomorrow, but you believe that it will. You have faith that it will in the laws of nature and the laws of the universe. Because if you didn't, then you wouldn't be planning your holiday or pay off your mortgage or anything of those things. So he proved that the uniformity of nature, if you don't believe in God, it actually requires still some form of faith. So everyone lives by faith.
Yeah, I do believe. And I think that that's probably why spirituality has grown, because people have such negative experiences within different religions to start off with. And spirituality doesn't feel, I guess, so restrictive and so tied, I guess. And so that allows you to still be a person without being persecuted or requiring to go to church. You can still have faith in a higher power or something bigger than you without having to have all of the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's probably in our world of fast pace and like difficulty, it's nice to have something that is like up there that you can give your stuff to, I guess, without having to go to church.
You know what's? I think hearing you speak, I think you would like the biblical
Your
Jesus.
church.
No. I think you would like the biblical Jesus, and I'll tell you why. Because what you're speaking about, that I guess the centralized, autocratic understanding of institutionalized religion, right? Mm-hmm. Back in the first century, they had the Jewish temple, which was where the Spirit of God dwelled. So there was the first temple where there was this cloud or Spirit of God, and you basically couldn't walk in the presence of it. It left because they turned away from God. It got destroyed, and they rebuilt the temple, but the Spirit never returned. The temple itself became almost like an idol, which was like the economic center. Gentiles, non-Jews couldn't go in. Only the priests could step into the Holy of Holies. There was all this. There was money. There was power. They were doing deals with the Romans, and it's sort of like at the same time they were killing the prophets. They were persecuting the people that wouldn't wash their hands or wouldn't go to Sabbath, and picking. It was crazy. But what Jesus did, he talked about, and this is the idea about Holy Spirit, is that he destroyed the temple. He actually said it was going to be destroyed within a generation, and it was. The Romans destroyed it 30 years later, right? Upon that destruction was the idea that through your faith in Jesus, he sends Holy Spirit to dwell in you as a temple, a living and breathing temple. Because it was actually written about in Daniel hundreds of years prior that the idea that the Messiah, Jesus, would set up an everlasting kingdom on earth, one that would never be destroyed. And it's like you take a city with walls or a temple with walls, that can easily be destroyed and removed and forgotten about. And it basically did happen. But how do you destroy a kingdom that's built in the heart of man? A living and breathing, moving temple, a dwelling place of the Holy Spirit. And that was the concept of it, which meant it wasn't centralized, it was decentralized. It just went out and it spread. You could have your own personal encounter with God by interacting with someone with that spirit.
I think that the language, and this is where the difficulty lies, is I think that the language, too many people have trauma from the language of the church, and too many people have trauma, like even in the Christian faith, like you have bad people, like look at Hillsong, like
what happened with
one of the biggest like Christian faiths in the world, like biggest places of worship, and there was destruction there. So you look at people with complex PTSD, and like you have people that are in faith that do bad things.
Yeah,
which
definitely
is
happens
in any faith.
Yeah.
So I think that the difficulty lies is that you've got too much trauma to be able to trust in the institution again. Too much trauma to be able to let go of the control that you get, I guess, from spirituality, because spirituality is I have my own God inside of me, and I'm able to like look at the shadow of me and see that there is darkness sometimes, but also see the light.
What do you mean by shadow of you?
So the shadow would be your ego or like your like destructive parts that hurt you. So that's like where spirituality comes in. I think that spirituality has taken some concepts of psychology and tried to change them, like inner child and working with your inner child in regards to those sorts of things. I don't know that they do a great job of like conceptualizing it very well. And I think that this is where the discernment is does it feel good to me? Is it like understandable, relatable? Those sorts of things for me comes into play, because I think there's lots of people online that can be like, let's do shadow work of like working with your ego and the dark parts of you. But do they have training and understanding into the effects of going into the darkness and not being able to get someone out, I guess, would be my concern with spirituality. But I think that it does give people the ability to have faith in different ways and without the trauma that they potentially have experienced through being in faith-based places.
Yeah. Look, it's definitely the way I look at it.
Who knows? Maybe you're going to heal the world.
But me?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think so.
With your lovely, maybe you're going to convert one person to come to your church or convert one place, and that's
I believe, just real quick, I don't believe I do that.
Yeah, but you believe that you speak the word of the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit then connects and does it.
I'm careful about prophetic words because it's very hard to discern what is your voice versus what God's voice, right? So I would probably use that, yes, I'm a dwelling place of the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit works, he uses me for sure. And that through the presence of God, people interact with him, and that he does the, I just plant a seed. Are we off on the?
That was weird.
What?
Did it go out?
No.
Oh,
maybe it's just your.
Went out on mine. Oh,
yeah. But I guess the idea that God does all those things, and I look at what Jesus has done for many people's lives, and look, there are bad stories.
Yeah.
Right, but you got that in everything.
100%, you've got that in everything. But you're asking people to just overcome the trauma of that and find Jesus again, which I think that sometimes language can be really affecting in trauma and the way that you perceive that. And that's like part of being trauma informed is understanding the impact of words and language and how you use language to affect that. And I think that would be a very difficult thing. But wouldn't it be good, regardless of how you view it or how I view it, that everyone finds their version of their temple inside of them? And wouldn't that heal the world if everyone was able to come and find their temple?
This is the thing, right? This is the thing. The whole idea of the Spirit of God dwelling in you is him being the source of goodness. See, I believe we live in an evil world, right? I believe there's evil in the world. I believe that man is the source of that evil, right?
Speak to my auntie. Best conspiracy.
But you got to like hand and tick, right? We know there's evil in the world, right? And I'm going to tell you, I am broken. I wouldn't call myself a good person, right? But I believe that the Spirit of God that dwells in me makes me better. I believe that he helps me.
You don't believe that you're inherently good
down
the bottom?
All.
Wow.
Not at all. Not at all.
I would believe that everyone is inherently good. And bad things happen to people that change who they become out of that. But I believe that everyone is born in their pure essence as inherently good. And it's life and the trauma that happens to them that makes them into bad people.
Nonetheless, evil still exists within people and do evil things.
100%. And I think that, like, I definitely believe that there is a test in the world today in regards to good versus evil and how things are. And I think that we definitely have to come back to that temple inside of us. And I think that, like, if you find, from my perspective, if you find self-energy, then self-energy is that kind, compassionate, it's curious, it's courageous when it needs to be, so it's able to put in boundaries when you need to put in boundaries to be like, this is not good for me or healthy for me, and be able to walk away from things that may be tempting. I think that it is clarity and creativity and connection and all of these wonderful things, I think, lives inside of you. And I think that if we can get people back to that, regardless of how you call it, then we're going to heal the world, aren't we? Wouldn't good overcome evil?
Well, I do believe that good will overcome evil. I just think that
but not people with you because you're bad.
Well, I rely upon God to make me better. But the idea that subjective understanding of morality, what we spoke about originally, about the idea of you defining what's right and wrong for yourself or having an understanding of that, is half the reason why we're in this mess today in our society.
But do you not think that you can connect in with God when you have questions or answers that you need answering, or you're like, I need guidance, God, show me the way? Like, I do not know.
Well, that's the point of Jesus. That's exactly, because it's like he's the one I trust.
Not subjective? Isn't that your understanding of what the message is and being able to implement that into your life? Isn't that subjective understanding?
In some respect, yes, definitely. But I know he was a historical person. I know he existed. I know he was a real guy. And I know the things that were written about him, that's my understanding of him. And through my understanding of him, I have personal revelation. See, I'm very careful about personal revelation because, like, people can say anything. Like, I've had this experience of God, right? And God's told me to marry 4 different women. You know what I mean? It's like, well, hang on a tick. The God that I know doesn't believe in that. That's like, I think that's manipulation.
I think that is 100% manipulation. You can manipulate anything.
Definitely. But that's why that's why the idea of Jesus being good, inherently good, he's my guide. Because I don't trust a subjective understanding of morality. And you're right, my interpretation of him through the words that were written, there is a subjective process in that. But I believe what he said, it's a bold claim, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. Like, it's a bold claim. No one's ever made that claim before. And the thing is I've seen, the only thing I can tell you of personal revelation is what's happened with me and what's happened with other people.
Wouldn't that be also your like internal compass? I was going to say moral, but I don't think it is. Your internal compass is, if I'm coming from a place, right? And so when you step into self-energy, it is like if I have a disagreement with you and I'm feeling really pissed off and I'm blended with a part that's fucking angry with you and it's like I want to hurt you, I want to destroy you.
I hope that's not now.
Not now.
Not yet.
But if you step into that energy and then you want to step into self-energy, if you're still feeling ill towards that person, you're not in self-energy. You're still blended with a part. If you step into the frustration of like, I still want to hurt you, or the justice thing, I need justice, you're not in self-energy. So you still have to remove all those parts or create space inside of you to connect in with that calm.
But just very quickly, self-energy is still of you, right? This is not the external thing you're talking about.
No, so that's big self. This is little self.
Yeah.
Everyone has little self, which is like an image of God inside of you.
Yeah.
Which is Holy Spirit, wouldn't it be?
Well, the Imago Dei, the image of God is, for me, my understanding is like the reason why we're different to animals is because we understand logic, reason, truth, beauty, goodness.
Yeah.
Right? These are transcendental concepts which come directly from God. The reason you recognize it, because you're an image bearer of God, as I am. So that's what makes us special and unique and wonderfully made. I think that's a good, inherently good message ultimately as well. Because especially, well, the idea of people being special and an image bearer of God and recognizing the transcendental, because if you look at an atheistic or secular understanding of humanity, you're just a cosmic accident and an evolved piece of bacteria. Where's the meaning?
Yeah.
You know, how do you speak to a teenager that's going through a rough time and be like, you have meaning, you have purpose, but you're also a cosmic accident and nothing really matters. You know, like, I actually think people moving away from God, and there has been a massive move in contemporary society to move away from God. And that's caused a lot of, along with what's happened with COVID, like a lot of issues with mental illness and depression and anxiety. I really do think that, especially among the youth, because from what I understand, I have other psychologists, mates that aren't willing to come on the podcast, mind you. So thank you for coming on. I don't want to talk about that God stuff.
I think
they're inundated.
It's not psychological view.
Yeah,
it's my personal view.
Oh no!
That influences me.
I understand that. I'm talking about in terms of psychology. It's like they're inundated. Like since COVID, like it's very, very busy. I
think that COVID made us realize how isolated and lonely we can actually be as human beings and how disconnected maybe we are. And I think that led to connection and to reaching out and to seeking something. And I think that's also why spirituality in the last 10, 15 years has grown so much, is that people are seeking something outside of themselves, a greater meaning, something higher than themselves. And I think that's what I like about blending, which is internal family systems, is blending the both, is that you finally get an understanding that there is something bigger than you that has positive intentions for you. I think that's an amazing, internal thing to have. Yeah.
Well, we've spoken about a lot of different things.
We have talked about a lot of different things.
I think it's very brave of you to come on.
Oh, thanks.
I really do. I don't agree with everything you've said, but I think it's been a very interesting conversation. I think we would have to be able to disagree and converse and be civil.
So we can still have the same opinion that a cup may not have been.
No, that's different. But that's true. We can disagree, right? Like if you say there's no cup, there's a cup there. I'm gonna say there's a cup, but that doesn't mean we have to hate each other. Well, that's the thing. It's like society is so polarized now. It's either you agree with me,
I think,
or go to hell. So I think we've got to be able to talk.
100%.
Yeah.
You have to be able to have I think that's the thing, is discernment inside of yourself. Even though you don't believe that that's a great thing because it is subjective, but I think that when you get back to true self and understanding of what is inside of you, then you're better able to make decisions in regards to that.
Yeah.
And what speaks to you. Yeah. And also, you don't get offended by other people's opinions, I think. when you have a true knowledge of who you are and what you believe in, I think you can have space for other people to have other belief systems because it doesn't affect your belief system in regards to that, if that makes sense. Because you
100%.
you can appreciate the person that's 100%. In front of you.
I always tell people I'm open to the possibility of being wrong about what I understand about the world. And I have to be because I'm not a fundamentalist. And the moment when I actually engage in a conversation with people that, are you open to the possibility of being wrong? No. I'm not interested in having a conversation with you. I mean, what's the point? But what's the point? If you think you're 100% right, that's a big claim. And I think it's unsubstantiated. You can't really actually know everything there is to know about the world. You've got a finite mind. It's not possible.
But I feel like you're not seeing the person still. So, what led them to have that part?
I would probably still talk to them. Don't worry. I end up doing it. I talk with Jehovah's Witness. I talk with Muslims. I talk with a whole variety of different things. So I really enjoy apologetics. Discussing, defending the faith and discussing different things, different views, and I find that super interesting. Here's one thing, not controversial, but just interesting.
Yeah.
In my understanding of bad spirits, here's something for you.
Really on these bad spirits, what happened to you?
Well, I've seen them. I've dealt with them. And every single one of them, and I would like to maybe understand, this is my subjective experience, right? Not a universal claim, but every single one of those spirits are afraid of the name of Jesus. Why do you think that is? Do you think the name carries spiritual power? Why does everyone, when they hurt their toe, they blaspheme and they don't go, Buddha, Muhammad. They say Jesus' name. Does it carry spiritual power in your understanding of spirituality?
No, no. For me, Jesus doesn't carry that understanding or that power for me.
Mm-hmm. The self, the big self. Have you communicated with big self?
Definitely. So I do breathwork sessions.
I've seen them.
Oh.
I've seen one of them. He was screaming at one of them.
Oh yeah, that was intense.
I was worried. Was that like a little bit of theater, or was that was definitely?
Yeah. I was let's film this.
But were you hurting
when
you did that, or were you?
I was releasing.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah. Okay, so I couldn't tell. I was like, are you okay? But then I see another video and you're just chatting. And I was like, I wasn't sure.
I'm okay.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Because I think that sometimes we always look at the positive side of things and we don't always look at the grief and the moving of energy. That's really big for me.
You said something funny in the bio or something like my neighbors think I'm. What did you said something about your neighbors? I thought it was pretty funny.
God, they laugh all the time.
Okay, cool.
At me.
So with big self,
I have little witch circles in the backyard, and my children come and sit in circle with me.
Okay.
Oh, there's Emily doing her witch stuff. I have my drums that I drum outside sometimes. Yeah.
2 questions. Big self.
Yes.
Are you able to have communication lines with big self, and have you heard words from big self?
I feel like I have, but again, that's subjective. I feel like it's a different voice, and I feel like, so for me,
it doesn't have to be audible. It can be feeling. It can be images.
Yeah. So I don't get images. I have aphantasia, which means I can't visualize anything. So when you say picture a beach, I can't actually picture a beach.
Really?
Yeah, in my mind. It's called aphantasia.
Wow.
Yeah. So when you're like, can you picture a green apple? I'm like, no idea.
Really? That's amazing.
I've never heard of that.
Really?
Have you always had that?
Yeah.
When did you realize you had it?
So it wasn't until a lot later on in psychology where I was they were getting us to do something and I was I can't actually picture it. There's a little internet test that you can do as picture a red star, and then they have different boxes of what that red star would
Is that scary? Is that scary at all? Or?
Well, when you've always had something, mental blindness is a difficult thing, isn't it? Because you never know that you're different. So I just never can picture, but I know things. So for me, it's a knowing. I know that that's my truth. I know that that's my understanding.
Okay. So that knowing, what was the knowing that was conveyed to you from Big Self?
So that knowing, from Big Self was more just about one love and being like, you know, we're all connected, everything will be okay. You know, you just have to let these things pass and like you are protected and safe and you'll be okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so like words of comfort and things like that. Okay. That's interesting.
Why?
Pardon?
Why?
No, I'm just, in my spiritual understanding, there's definitely much, you get like heart promptings, spirit promptings, images, but still blown away by that thing, hey? So if I ask you to picture the yellow cup.
Yeah, there's no yellow cup. In my mind.
Well, theoretically maybe there wasn't. If we were to pose a question,
if I was to close my eyes, there was never a yellow cup.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But there's a
knowing.
I know what.
Have you ever prayed for healing on that?
No. Never prayed for healing.
Would you be open to the possibility of us praying for healing for you?
Sure.
You would?
Yeah.
Won't do that on camera.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah?
Do you have dreams as well at night? Do you
yeah, so I do dream, but most of my dreams are in that early morning REM sleep and they're like very vivid and very crazy. But I do not have, pictures that I can picture in my mind. There is some research to say that trauma, like the more that you dissociate means the more that you can't connect with your body and your understanding of your mind eye, and your mind eye kind of closes out regarding that. But it's very difficult to measure. So there's a correlation, not causation. So, means that those two things coexist and one doesn't lead to another.
Correlation doesn't equal causation. Yes. Yeah, I love that one, eh? The scientific consensus. I always say that. It was like, but it looks like it's related.
But we don't know. Lots of people in column A have column B, but we don't know if column A causes column B. Yeah.
Well, we've discussed a lot of things. I think we've been going for how long now? Hour and a half?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
I really would like to get you back for a part 2. Pardon?
Oh, Jesus.
See? His name carries power. We can't escape him. But I would like to invite you back for a part 2 if you ever would be open to it. Yeah. I feel like we've only I could probably go for another hour. The issue is our producer isn't here today. That switches over batteries and things like that. So, we could theoretically go 3-4 hours. It doesn't matter, but it makes it difficult if we don't have him here today. But if you would be willing to come back, that would be awesome. I've really enjoyed having you. I really thank you for coming here because, again, different views. People are afraid to have that conversation, and I think hopefully people can learn that people can respectfully disagree and gain insight from another person's perspective through this conversation as well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think learning Jesus was not the Son of God was like my biggest take home from today.
Awesome.
Far out.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure.
Very nice to meet you. That's it.